Welcome to Academics Anonymous. Today I'll be discussing 10 differences between undergraduate and graduate school for those who are considering higher education or for those who are just curious. Alright, let's get started. Number 1. Undergraduate programs are about learning, whereas graduate programs are about contributing. This point may seem a bit counterintuitive since the entire concept of school is synonymous with learning, but let me explain. The average undergraduate program takes about 4 to 6 years to complete and consists almost entirely of coursework. These courses include general education subjects like math, science, and humanities to help students establish a well-rounded foundation, and major-related courses designed for specialization. The main job for undergraduate students is to attend their classes, complete their assignments, and pass their exams. Repeating this process for several years results in earning a bachelor's degree. Pretty straightforward. Now, people who graduate with a bachelor's degree are assumed to have a socially respectable level of worldly education, with a bit more knowledge concentrated around a specific field, that being whatever they majored in. However, it is not expected for these people to have done anything meaningful with their education up to this point of their lives. Dare I say, undergraduate degrees are more an indicator of someone's potential of providing value to society than an actual demonstration of that value. In contrast, graduate programs shift focus away from coursework, which actually becomes one of the least important responsibilities. Rather, the main objective in graduate school is to develop an original research project. This project is known as a thesis, which must be written and defended, and its purpose is to advance the knowledge of your field. You can see this process played out in the movie A Beautiful Mind, where the graduate student John Nash skips classes to focus on his original idea for his thesis. While some classes are useful and help teach you important concepts, in my personal experience and that of many of my peers, most classes in graduate school were largely distracting and were only really attended as a formality. But the main point is that, unlike in undergraduate programs, the goal is no longer just about learning, but rather it becomes about contributing to one's field. Number 2. Undergraduate programs emphasize GPA, whereas graduate programs emphasize impact factor. For those who don't know, an impact factor is an indicator of the annual rate in which other researchers will use your published work as a source for their information. In other words, if your research gets published in a journal with an impact factor of 7, it means that on average, 7 people will cite your research per year. Now, piggybacking off the first topic, because undergraduate programs almost exclusively consist of coursework, tremendous attention is given to a student's performance in their classes. Grades contribute to a grade point average, or GPA, which is the most commonly used metric to evaluate a student's success in their undergraduate program. A high GPA can open doors to many scholarship opportunities or lead to honors such as Dean's List, Magna Cum Laude, and Summa Cum Laude, and these recognitions enhance a student's resume, making them more attractive to employers. Although, let's be real, most employers focus more on whether or not a degree was obtained than whatever GPA was achieved. However, for students aiming to pursue graduate studies, a strong GPA is often a key criterion for admission. This all changes in graduate school, where the significance of grades and GPA is almost negligible. Here, success is measured by impact factors, citation counts, and grants rather than by grades or exam scores. In grad school, the only point of attending classes is to learn information that can be directly applied to developing your own original research project. I believe I can safely say that university professors would unanimously prefer a student who performs poorly in every class but publishes their own original research in a high-impact journal than a student who is in the top of their class in every subject but never gets published. Number 3. Classes are more casual in graduate school. We've all experienced it. When the college semester starts, the classes are full of eager young minds ready to learn and get good grades. A few weeks later, lecture halls start thinning out for any classes where attendance is not mandatory. You can look across the room and find half the class asleep or on their phones. Some students have questions, but they don't ask because they're either too shy or they don't want to prolong the class any more than it needs to be. Professors deliver a pre-scripted lecture designed to fit within the designated time window. Once that time is up, it's on to the next class and the process repeats. That's what classes are like in undergrad, at least. On the other hand, grad school classes have a much more casual vibe. Class sizes are smaller. If too many people are busy with experiments, or if the professor has another meeting, classes can get rescheduled or canceled. Scheduled classes often run late or end early. Similarly, students can show up late or leave early without it being a big deal or a major distraction. When students have questions, they just interrupt and ask. Respectfully, of course. Attendance usually doesn't affect grades and typically isn't even taken. Classes are just as much open discussions as they are lectures. This is largely because students are more interested in how they can apply the knowledge to their own projects rather than just memorizing and regurgitating facts. Number 4. In graduate school, you realize that professors are people too. I mean, obviously we know that professors are people, but we don't really process this until later. This might be due to the larger age gap between undergrads and professors, or simply because undergrads only ever really see professors in the context of teaching. Also, undergrads only ever really hear professors talk about things that they're experts in. We don't hear about their families, their political views, their relationship struggles, or anything else we learn about people we know on a personal level. But a lot of this changes in graduate programs. While we still see professors in a position of authority, we also see them as collaborators. We benefit from their guidance, but they also benefit from our work. We become a little more familiar with our subject of study, and we grow more capable of defending our opinions on related topics. We become a little more willing to argue or express contention with professors, and occasionally we can prove them wrong, exposing their imperfections, or in other words, their humanity. In addition, the further we advance our own careers, the less we pay attention to age as an important factor in our social relationships. So it's common to hang out with professors in social settings, including things like watching sporting events or going out for dinner and drinks. During these times, we get a more personal glimpse into their lives. We learn about our professor's kids who are just about to enter college, or his mother who's currently in the hospital, or how he's thinking about creating a small business but doesn't know where to start. We realize that we have a lot more in common with our professors than we previously considered. You'd be surprised how often this recognition of humanity can lead to the formation of lifelong friendships. Number 5. In undergrad, you know everything. In grad school, you know nothing. In college, you get to experience the full spectrum of the Dunning-Kruger effect. Once you receive your college acceptance letter, everyone is telling you how proud they are of you. After all, just the fact that you got admitted into a university suggests that you were among the smarter students in your high school. Now you get to be independent and make all the important decisions that will dictate your future. Finally, you can use your knowledge that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, and all that other stuff about the Pythagorean theorem and isosceles triangles and whatnot. Okay, maybe not. Your professors know the answers to any questions you might have. All you need to do is ask and learn. After surviving a few semesters in college, you become familiarized with the important concepts in your major, and your educated insight is enough to impress your friends and family. And kudos to you, you've earned every bit of that pride. You are now at the peak of the Dunning-Kruger curve. Unfortunately, after graduating with a bachelor's degree, all that praise got to your head and you were foolish enough to enter a graduate program. In the first seminar you attend, you realize you have no idea what the presenter is talking about. The concepts are so advanced it sounds like they're speaking another language. You're surrounded by people with tattoos of molecular structures of caffeine, serotonin, or MDMA. Welcome to graduate school, where for the next couple years, you're going to be the dumbest person in the room. In graduate school, every question you ask takes you deeper down the rabbit hole. Every new concept leads to 100 other terms you'd never heard of before, each with its own set of questions and answers that lead to more questions, and the cycle just continues repeating itself, beating the graduate student into submission. You are now in the valley of the Dunning-Kruger curve. Eventually, you come to accept the fact that you can never become an expert in every aspect of your field. There's simply too much information. The only way you can learn enough of anything for it to be meaningful is to hone in on an ever-shrinking subsection of your field. In the grand scheme of things, the more you learn, the more you realize how little you know. Once you can truly internalize this principle, you have reached the enlightenment phase of the Dunning-Kruger curve. Number 6. In grad school, you learn a lot more about a lot less. This may sound similar to number 5, but it's not the same. To put it simply, people with undergraduate degrees know nothing about everything, and people with graduate degrees know everything about nothing. That is to say, during undergrad, people learn about a wide range of subjects. a little physics, a little philosophy, some European history, maybe a foreign language, and so on. They learn enough about each different subject to make themselves interesting to talk to, but they don't learn enough about any particular subject to become a necessarily reliable source of information. Even with regards to their own major, their grasp of the field is typically only surface level. An undergraduate may have aced biology, but not fully comprehend the downstream mechanisms activated by the MAPK signaling pathway. An undergraduate may have completed 3 courses of Asian studies, but not be able to explain the significance of King Sejong's contributions to the Korean people and its culture. This is contrasted with graduate students who delve so deeply into a subject and spend so much time to develop that depth of knowledge that they don't have enough time to learn about anything else, and anything even slightly outside the topic is beyond that student's area of expertise. For example, a Ph.D. level neuroscientist might be able to tell you exactly how reactive oxygen species from amyloid beta plaques in Alzheimer's disease contribute to neurodegeneration, but not be able to explain what happens during a brain freeze. Number 7. In undergrad, professors assign you homework. In grad school, you assign yourself homework. I realize that just listening to this, it sounds really strange, so let me clarify. What I mean is, in undergrad, you often have to read things that are completely irrelevant to your interests or even your major. You read those things because some college committee believes that the contents of your assignments contain general information that will make you, quote-unquote, educated compared to your non-college educated peers. In some sense, it's good to read and learn about things outside of your comfort zone, as doing so will teach you about things you would have never otherwise learned. And oftentimes, it's the things that are outside of your comfort zone that are most worth exploring. However, there are many instances that your time would be better spent learning things that are directly applicable to your life or your major. There is no sense in sacrificing knowledge that you will certainly need for knowledge that you may or may not need. But this changes in grad school. Here, more often than not, you'll have a primary project to complete. You may or may not be given clear directions on how to navigate this project, and this is what distinguishes grad school from undergrad. It's your job to figure out how to complete your project. That is, if it can even be completed. And clues to the answer are found in previously published research. In graduate school, especially in Ph.D. programs, the timeline for graduation is in the students' hands, so they're incentivized to be productive. In such programs, everyone has a different project, so professors don't have time to assign every student a customized reading list. Even if professors wanted to, this would be too time-consuming. Rather, grad students take it upon themselves to seek out answers to their own questions. In grad school, students read for the sole purpose of understanding, and despite the material being harder to comprehend, the students in grad school read more diligently because they know what they learn will be applied. Number 8. In undergrad, you dream to be rich. In grad school, you dream to not be poor. Let's be honest. Most people go into college because they think doing so will make them rich once they graduate. Very few students have an exact career plan worked out. They just think things will come together somehow with them ending up on top. And 30 years ago, this might have been the case. It isn't until after a student graduates that they realize how brutal the job market is, even for those with a college degree. And if they took out student loans, they quickly learn how much time and money it set them back. The average student debt in the US is $38,000. It'll take the average student around 20 years to pay this off when you factor in interest rates. To make things worse, because the job market is now saturated with college graduates, employers are now in a position to offer low salaries. Many new bachelor's degree holders find themselves choosing between either taking a low-wage job to start paying off their student loan debt, or continuing their education by pursuing an advanced degree in hopes of securing a high-paying job once they graduate from a master's or Ph.D. program. However, as more bachelor's graduates face the same dilemma, graduate programs are growing increasingly hyper-competitive, and the overflow of advanced degree holders is starting to influence even the high-skilled and technical job markets, raising the barrier for employment even in advanced industries. In graduate school, you receive the reality check that your degree isn't as valuable as you'd been tricked into believing it is. It's your skill set that matters. And you'll only be paid based on the value that you're able to provide others in accordance with how they value your skill set, not according to what society told you you're worth. Because of this, many graduates are grateful for whatever they can get, unless you majored in computer programming or AI. In that case, you're probably a millionaire by now. Number 9. In undergrad, you might have a job. In grad school, your research is your job. As discussed earlier, undergrad programs pretty much only consist of classes. This means students have a set schedule that repeats itself every week. Unless the student is taking more than 5 classes per semester, that student is likely to have some extra time on their hands. I know many students would say that they're busy with homework and studying, but compared to grad school, undergrad students have a bunch of free time. Many such students devote this time towards a part-time job or a side hustle to make ends meet or to get a head start in paying off their student loans. These students typically work modest hours for a modest salary. Conversely, in graduate programs, your research becomes your job, and it's generally a low-paying job. Most graduate programs pay a stipend, which is like an allowance for adults. Depending on the major, this can range from anything as low as several hundreds of dollars per month to several thousands of dollars for students with valuable technical skills. Unfortunately, some graduate programs charge tuition despite not even offering useful curriculum, resulting in students needing to pay back much of their stipends towards tuition fees and textbooks. But it's important to remember that the goal here is to develop a valuable skill set. If done properly, the money will follow, eventually. Number 10. In undergrad, people talk about life. In grad school, your research is your life. Sorry if this is starting to sound like a broken record, but it's exactly how graduate student life sounds after a while. In undergrad, people are still idealistic and full of hope and interesting. Students go to class, maybe have a job, most likely attend a few parties, and talk to people. The future is bright. Students are up to date on current events and whatever the latest trend is on social media. When you meet people, you discuss hobbies and interests, and even topics of contention. You have civil and sometimes not so civil debates on issues. In the undergrad environment, people have plenty of interesting things to talk about, making people multidimensional and entertaining. As you progress through academia, you realize that the higher up you get, the more people only seem to talk about their research. "How are you?" is quickly followed by, "How's your research going?" And the answer is always, "Things are good," even though they aren't. People also ask, "When are you expecting to graduate?" If you respond, "Next semester," this really means 1 to 2 semesters later. And if you answer, "Next year," that means hopefully in 2 years. And if you say anything longer than a year, it basically means you have no idea. You can almost see someone's soul leaving as they respond. And on that sad note, those are 10 differences between undergraduate and graduate school. Let me know if there's anything I missed, or if there are any interesting academic topics you'd like me to discuss in a future video. As always, thanks for watching.